What is up, guys? You're tuning in to Nikki MGTV for another military review for all your military needs. As always, you can hit me up on Instagram, Snapchat, or down in the comments below if you have questions. But as always, let's roll right to the topic. Again, if you didn't catch in the first video, this is Lance Corporal Gomez is here. Let's talk about dating in the military because I think that you are going to give a way better perspective, especially because you're in the Marine Corps. You're only 7% of the branch for females. Male dominated. You're overseas, which is like limits probably who you're going to date anyway, like to a total extent of that. So I think this is one question many people don't think of is what is your perspective on this? Like, is it hard or is it easy?
Actually, I think it's like it's complicated.
What?
It's the combination of them both because it's easy, especially being a female.
Okay.
Even if you're like a 4, easy.
So you have your choice of men.
You definitely have your choice, just because I don't know if it's because you're overseas and like some.
I will say I have seen the overseas where people that like when I was in Spain, it was very much like that where that did happen where people would be together in Spain, but when they left, they weren't together. Right. So
no, it's super easy to find a companion.
Yeah.
What's hard is finding someone who is compatible for you.
Yeah.
So if you want, just to hang out with someone like a weekend type thing, it's fine. Like, you're perfectly fine. But when it comes to finding relationships, I feel like a lot of factors go into play that make it difficult.
Especially with like deployments, if someone moves before you, after you, I don't know about if you've seen this in your short term, but for my long time being in now, it feels like every time I see something, like a couple work out, or even like my friendships, it always ends up being like one person. I'm friends with somebody that's leaving very soon, and it kind of happens. It's like the last 6 months to a year, and then they're gone.
Definitely, it's kind of like when you're a freshman and you make all senior friends,
and
then your senior friends go off to college, and then you're still stuck there for another 3 years.
Yeah, that's kind of how it can be. That's a good analogy.
Thanks.
So, what are most people like? I gotta ask this: are most people using like Tinder and Bumble?
Yeah, a lot of people.
Okay, Tinder. All right. So I don't use Tinder obviously, so I have to ask this because I'm not part of the game. So I have to ask. Because I'm like, man, I was back on Plenty of Fish Days with Justine. So for me,
it's not even a thing anymore.
It's not even a thing. Sorry. And that's okay. It probably should have never been a thing.
Probably not, no.
But, so does it complicate work at all? Because I think that's a good question because my theory is you never poop where you sleep. So you shouldn't date anybody that you work with. That's
not wrong. You're not wrong.
Yeah.
It does complicate things. So like, you'll see, so sometimes, I personally have a Tinder, so sometimes you'll be on it, and then you'll see a Marine that you know, or a sailor that you know, and you're like, I'm just going to swipe right to see if they swiped right, but then they end up liking you, so then whenever you see them at work, then it's kind of like you give each other awkward glances, and you don't really ever, then it just like creates tension.
Yeah.
So
the next thing, that's a really good point, but I just want to bring up the fact of like, when you first got to where we're at, I'm not going to say where we're stationed at, but when you first got there, did you feel like it's kind of overwhelming, the attention you got? Or, and this is from what I've seen as an outsider, where like any ship or duty station, like women get flocked to when it's like a new woman. So I was just curious if you felt that way.
Yes. Like I know when I first got here, and I was getting into my barracks room, like there'd be like a guy passing by, like, oh, you new, like, do you need help with it? I don't know if it's just being nice. But, I mean, then, like, they would come and, like, knock on the door and be like, oh, hey, I just wanted to meet you, like, you're the new girl. But it would only ever be guys, like, it was never a female.
But then you gotta ask, it's the ratio of...
Right, that's what it's just so confusing, like, I don't know if you're being nice, or I don't know if you're coming to just see who the new, like, quote-unquote bait is, I guess.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know.
Yeah. So. No, I get that. So, now that you... I say this too because I've seen this as well. As much as women can be flocked to, especially in smaller commands, which I hate saying that, like, be careful, in 2018.
No, but you definitely have, like, it's still something you have to say.
Yeah, and it's not, I don't think anything bad's going to happen to anybody, but I'd say it's more so be careful because when you're in a small base like we are, or even when I was in Spain, it was a small base, where literally, like, if you're back in the States, you could maybe with 1 or 2 people in a span of 6 months, and that's fine. Nobody even cares. But when you're on a small base, it's like, she's already been with so and so,
Yeah.
and it happens so quick, and you're gonna give warning like, hey, this is a really small like high school community.
No, it really is. It's
So-
kind of, it's like literally like a small little town. Everybody knows
Yeah.
everybody's names. Your business, whether you like it or not, is gonna be everywhere.
Yeah.
So-
and it's out there even without you trying to have it.
It really
out there.
is. It's just yeah. So but then that's kind of like where, I don't know if it's just a military thing, but more of like a societal thing where
Yeah.
like males, it doesn't really matter how many females they're with, but like with females, it just
It
kind of like,
matters magically.
right, but which is
Yeah.
ridiculous about the thing. So like to 15 males is one
Yeah.
female, so it's kind of like if I end it
The
with
odds
one
are in
guy,
your favor.
right? That's what I'm saying. But like if I end it with one guy and decide to go to another guy,
Yeah.
like it's frowned upon.
Yeah, I can see that.
But it's really
And I say this because, like, where our situation is at, honestly, it's even more difficult because you're in a foreign country, in Japan, which
Right.
a lot of people don't like Japanese guys. Females don't. It's not. I only know a few people that I've met that like Japanese men. And then on top of that, then you narrow it down further to base, and then your own preference on American guys,
Right.
which is even smaller. So.
yeah.
It's just interesting, something that people don't think about when they deal with. You're kind of forced to date military guys if you're over here.
Yeah.
You want like a real relationship day in, day out. But if you had a preference, do you think that you would date civilian guys over military guys? Or what is your preference?
I think, so my viewpoint on this is that if you're a military female, whether you're in the Marine Corps, the Navy, whatever, it's you plan on staying in for an extended period of time,
Yeah.
you kind of don't really have any other option but to be with military men, because a lot of guys struggle with masculinity, you know?
Yeah.
So like if they see, oh, my wife is a Marine and I'm a stay-at-home dad, unfortunately there's going to be some kind of stigma there. That's just what I've come to see. So
Yeah, I could see it too. I've met a couple relationships where the spouse is a male that's not in the military.
right, but usually in those cases, it's the male was once in the military and then they
True.
got out. I've never, not once met where the
And-
husband has solely been independent throughout the whole time.
I have a friend that actually has that scenario. So it's obviously not super common.
Right.
Since I'm only recalling one of these scenarios,
Right.
but I think it makes it hard because usually the male is a person that has some kind of professional
Definitely.
knowledge that is the main income earner, because the mom is going to stay at home. Especially, if you eventually want to have kids and stuff like
Right.
that complicates it even more.
Yeah, definitely.
Trying to make sure that everything is good on that home front. But last minute advice to somebody trying to date in the military, what to expect, because you're in this game,
right.
I'm not.
You're
the
not. You're
expert.
definitely not. You're definitely not. But I would just say to be careful, not in the sense like where you might get hurt, but be careful in the reputation that you might not purposely try to bring on
Want to
yourself.
portray.
Yes, exactly. So that's another thing with female Marines. We kind of get the reputation of like being promiscuous or
Yeah.
whatever. So I would just be careful and stay weary, I guess,
Yeah.
of who you're hanging out with and what you're doing with said
Because
people.
we say, I don't know if you guys say this in Marine Corps, but perception is reality. So that is literally how the whole military kind of works. So yeah, definitely be wary of that. But
Yep.
I think you gave a lot of good insight and knowledge on like what to expect, and that's for any branch, not just the Marine Corps.
Yeah,
I think the Marine Corps, your knowledge is just on a spectrum of like that versus say the Air
Right.
Force, but it can still happen even in the Navy, which I've seen as well. So.
Mm-hmm.
But as always, guys, if you guys have questions for her or myself, you can hit us up on Instagram, Snapchat, or down in the comments below. And as always, guys, we love you guys. We'll see you next time.
So I'll shed my skin.